Good afternoon, everyone. You are very welcome to today's event. The panel will be delighted to receive any questions you may have. Please use the Q&A feature located at the bottom of your PC or laptop screen. If you're using any other device today, you will find this feature located in the More option, usually identified by 3 dots. Now, without further ado, I will hand you over to our host for today, Dr. Breda Neville. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Sunbeds, What You Need to Know About the Risks to Your Health. The HSE's National Cancer Control Programme coordinates the implementation of the National Skin Cancer Prevention Plan 2023 to 2026. And as part of the plan, we're continuously identifying and pursuing opportunities to further raise awareness of the risks of sunbed use. In collaboration with Healthy Ireland, we run the Dangers of Sunbed Awareness campaign. The campaign runs all year round and aims to raise awareness that sunbeds emit UV radiation and increase your risk of developing skin cancer. Skin cancer is the most common cancer in Ireland among both men and women, with over 11,000 cases diagnosed every year. The number diagnosed each year is increasing and is projected to double between 2015 and 2045. All sunbed users are at risk, and there is no safe limit of exposure to UV radiation from sunbeds. Using a sunbed even once in your life increases your risk of developing skin cancer. The risk is even higher if you start using a sunbed at an early age, so before the age of 35, and the more often you use sunbeds, the higher the risk. Tanned skin is damaged skin, and it is never safe to use a sunbed. The HSE National Cancer Control Programme's advice on the risks associated with sunbed use is grounded in well-established scientific public health evidence and reflects the consensus of international health authorities on the harmful effects of artificial UV exposure. Today's webinar will outline the proven health risks associated with sunbeds, explore prevention strategies and safer alternatives, explain the Public Health Sunbeds Act 2014 and its enforcement by the HSE's National Environmental Health Service, and examine the psychology of sunbed use. The webinar is being recorded, and the recording, along with some useful resources, will be circulated tomorrow to everyone who registered. Just to note that we cannot give medical advice or answer individual medical questions, and if you have any concerns, you should contact your GP. We'll have a panel discussion at the end of the webinar for about 15 minutes, so if you have any questions that you would like to ask any of the presenters, please send them in via the chat and we'll aim to answer them then. And we'll also have staff who are available to answer questions over the course of the webinar. At the end of today's webinar, we will be circulating a short survey for you to complete, and we would really appreciate if you could take time to give us your feedback. So our first speaker today is Celine Daly-Tarpey. Celine is a nurse tutor at the Centre for Nursing and Midwifery Education, Sligo, Leitrim and West Cavan, and a registered advanced nurse practitioner with over 17 years specialist experience in dermatology at Sligo University Hospital. She has a strong clinical and educational focus on skin health, skin cancer prevention and early detection, and has been actively involved in SunSmart education since 2004. She has worked in collaboration with the National Cancer Control Programme on national SunSmart campaigns, helping to raise public awareness around the dangers of UV exposure. And in addition to her clinical work, she is a qualified health coach and is passionate about empowering individuals to make informed, sustainable health choices. She's also contributed regularly to public education through media, including a recurring slot on News Talk Radio's Pat Kenny Show, where she discussed skin health and cancer prevention. And today she's going to speak to us about health risks associated with sunbed use and prevention alternatives and healthy choices.
Thank you so much, Dr. Breda. Thank you for that. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for attending this afternoon. It's just wonderful. I'm going to share my screen now, and I have a small presentation that I would love to share with you all. So, today I'm going to talk about health risks associated with sunbed use and talk about prevention alternatives and healthy choices. And as I was introduced there, that's when you hear yourself introducing, is it me she's talking about? That's wonderful. Thank you so much. So my name is Celine and I am nursing almost 30 years. I trained in Sligo University Hospital way back in 97 and worked in medical, but spent a huge amount of time working in dermatology and absolutely loved every single minute of it. A huge interest of mine in the dermatology space is around skin cancer and skin cancer prevention. And when we were at the launch yesterday, I was speaking about, I suppose, that sobering experience that I would have had and experienced as a young nurse starting out my career working in dermatology. When I started, I was coming from a background in a family who would have tanned and who would have enjoyed tanning and didn't see the dangers of overexposure to UV radiation and light. When I started dermatology in 2004, in my first week, I met somebody who was diagnosed with skin cancer and was really upset and concerned for them because they were so upset and concerned around the fact that they had this quite serious diagnosis and their family, their loved ones were also upset and concerned. So immediately I became a SunSmart advocate and a person who talked an awful lot about skin cancer prevention, and I have done ever since to anybody who will listen to me. So I'm so delighted that everyone is here today. At this
Celine,
talk.
sorry,
Yes,
apologies. Would you mind either putting that into full screen or just trying to reshare again? It's just we can
sure.
see some of those
Absolutely. Sorry, guys. Hang on, I'll stop share.
Yeah. And if you just go back in again, and if not, I can take over the share anyway as well. Apologies.
Maybe could you share? Would that be okay?
Of course I can. Yeah, and all you have
Brilliant,
to do, Celine, is just ask me to move the slide when you need.
fabulous. Thank you so
Thank you.
fantastic. Yeah, so you can move on to the next slide, please. Great. So I'd just like to ask attendees, I don't know, can people drop in the chat? What do they think the reasons, or why do people use sunbeds, do we think? So in your experience, in your personal experience, or if you're working as a healthcare practitioner, or if you're coming on and you're a parent or a person that has used sunbeds, just drop a reason in or a reason why people use sunbeds. It's just to kind of get the conversation going, maybe asking why people use sunbeds or why it's there's a need or a want for people to use sunbeds. That'd be great. Oh, yes, and please use the Q&A. That'd be fabulous, if that's okay. And sorry, Jean, can I see the Q&A when it comes up?
Yes, you can. So the Q&A is at the bottom, but at the moment we don't have anyone popping anything in yet, Celine.
That's okay. Do you know what? I can move along, Jean, and we can have discussion after, no problem whatsoever.
Perfect. Oh, everyone is getting into it now. I can see them all coming through.
Brilliant.
Would you like me to move to the next slide, or do you want to just give everyone a moment, Celine?
Maybe give everyone a moment if that's okay.
Perfect.
I'm seeing the Q&A myself here. Oh, great. Yeah. See, Helena said, I think people use them for a healthy glow now in an era of influencers. And certainly, Helena, yes, that's something that we were getting feedback on yesterday when we were in Dublin at the launch. And there was certainly a lot of concern around what people were seeing online and certainly what they were consuming online. Karen, thank you so much. People feel like they look better with a tan. Yeah, and I'll touch on some of that as well further in the presentation. Lisa, that's a really good point. People say they use sunbeds to get a base for a tan, and that's something that we would hear a lot of, that people feel that if they go to get a base, that they're not going to get burnt on holidays. If they're going pre-holiday, for example, that's something that I would hear too. And Fiona, you work with the traveling community. Over the years, Fiona, I would have worked, one of my favorite things to do was to work with the traveling community. I met the best women, specifically women I talked to at the time in both Carrick-on-Shannon, in Sligo, in Galway, in Tuam, and in Castlebar. And we had such great energetic conversations around everything skin, but specifically around sunbed use as well, where there was a lot of sunbed use. And it differed. It wasn't the same for everybody. So I think there's this misconception that all travellers use sunbeds when actually they don't. But there was a lot of conversation around that, and we'll touch on that as well. People feel more confident. Thanks, Danielle. Danielle's, yeah, people say they feel more confident. And Anne-Marie, the beauty cell is now very brown and tanned. Yes, it's become that fashionable thing for a long time. Neve says people say they look better with a tan and don't think of the long-term consequences. And Fiona has a lot of clients using sunbeds. Thank you so much. Yes, and this is some brilliant feedback and a lack of education. So I'll move on, but thank you so much. It's just great to get those reasons and that kind of feel that we have on the ground of why people use sunbeds. So why people tan? So I've done a lot of graphics for this presentation because I certainly like not to read so much, but to speak and to see visuals. And in the timeline of human beings, how long we've been on the planet, for the length that we've been on the planet, for the majority of that time, people did not desire a tan. So pre-1920s, people thought it was beautiful to be pale. They thought that having pale skin was a sign of wealth and status. They felt tan skin was associated with people who had to work outdoors. And fashion favoured elegance, refinement, and this porcelain skin look. So all of a sudden, Coco Chanel, she goes down on her holidays down to the south of France, and hey presto, she comes back, she's photographed with a tan, and all of a sudden overnight, it became fashionable to have a tan. And that hasn't changed in since the 1920s. It's really stuck. So it emerged as a kind of a sign of wealth, of modern living, of being super fashionable, and it became aspirational then to travel and to have a tan literally overnight. So that's when it's changed, and it's stuck ever since. Next slide, please, Jean. So again, we live in the Northern Hemisphere. We live in a country where people couldn't get a tan except in the summertime. So then in the 1960s to the 1980s, the early use of sunbeds emerged. And they were basic lamps at that time. They were called sunbeds. We now have sun showers, but people used them for long periods of time, like 10 to 20 minutes. And the risks are very real from the very beginning. So again, we see pictures of people who have tan skin, who become older, and then they have these visible signs of aging. So we always knew that tan skin damaged skin. However, the research caught up with it. And I suppose the one really important piece of research that was conducted by the World Health Organization, they found that one sunbed session increases your risk of skin cancer by up to 75%. And that's one sunbed session under the age of 35 increases your risk of skin cancer by 75%. That's really significant. And they labeled sunbeds or classified sunbeds as a level 1 or group 1 carcinogenic along with tobacco and asbestos. So we know that they're dangerous. Now, you will hear that quote quite a lot because it's so strong and powerful, but we have a wealth of research, again, done internationally, looking at UV exposure, looking at sunbeds, and linking UV exposure from sunbeds with skin cancer. So we now know that we have a lot of sunbed use. We know that modern sunbeds are very high performing and they emit a huge amount of UVA and UVB light. People go on them from anything from 3 to 12 minutes, and we know that the risk is quite high. And we always know that they're dangerous. We know it damages their DNA, and these short, intense bursts of light can lead to skin cancers and can lead to melanoma, which is the most serious type of skin cancer. Next slide, please. So what actually happens during a sunbed session? We know that sunbeds emit UVA and UVB light. And we know that UVA goes deep within the skin, right down to the bottom layer of our skin, and it causes aging and it causes skin cancer. And we know that UVB light causes burning and also causes skin cancer. So we know that when UV light is shone on our skin, that it damages the DNA within our skin cells. And when we say DNA, when I explain this to patients, I often liken it to, imagine your skin cell as a bubble, and imagine your little string of DNA is there, kind of like a chicken bone. If you get too much UV light, that DNA is permanently broken or damaged and cannot be repaired. So when you might hear advertisements, say for skincare, for example, that will advertise and say reversing the signs of aging or reversing a damage from the sun, unfortunately, we can't reverse damage from the sun that's already been done. We can stop damaging our skin more, which is really important. So it's important to stop our UV clock, to stop that amount of UV exposure that we have shining on our skin. So our skin cells react to this damaged DNA. If you've ever been sunburnt, you might find that your skin sheds off, almost peels off. And that's your body's way of getting rid of damaged skin cells. But your body, although it's worked really well and your skin works well, there's no way of actually getting rid of all the damaged cells. So your body will retain some of those damaged cells. And sometimes, in some cases, it can take 40 years for skin cancer to grow. So the damage that you do as a child, a teenager, and young adult can result in skin cancer in later life. Damage builds up then, and it creates signs of aging. So when we're talking about fine lines, wrinkles, loss of firmness, loss of elasticity, uneven skin tone, dark spots or hypopigmentation, when we get loss of color, it creates DNA damage, skin cancers, sunspots, eye damage, and a weakened immune system in our skin, which is not what we want. So next slide, please, Jean. So the main types of skin cancer that we can develop, one are these non-melanoma type skin cancers. So we know we can develop basal cell carcinomas, and basal cell carcinomas are the most common form of skin cancer. You'll see the little lesion there on your far left-hand side of the screen, and it tends to come as a pearly looking lesion or a small little nodule looking lesion. It tends to be what we say cross-retinal, meaning there'll be a presence of a little blood vessel within it as well. And that's a typical looking BCC, although they can look different. They tend to come after years of chronic sun exposure. Squamous cell carcinoma then, again, it can grow more rapidly. It can look what we call juicy, so it can bleed a little bit more readily than a BCC, for example. And it can and has the ability to spread, not very much, but it can and does have the ability to spread. Then we have our malignant melanoma, and malignant melanoma is the most dangerous form of skin cancer. And malignant melanoma has the ability to spread to other organs of the body. If you see a new lesion, any lesion that appears on your skin that wasn't there before, particularly if you have a history of UV exposure, sunbed use, fair skin, and outdoor worker, you should make an appointment with your GP immediately to go and be seen and be reviewed. That's really, really important. So don't keep looking at it, wondering and asking why. If you have a new lesion and it wasn't there before and you have a history of exposure, go to your GP and be seen where you can be triaged and treated properly. Next slide, please. So we have healthy alternatives, and that's the really exciting news. It's brilliant. So there are alternatives to tanning your skin. We have spray tans and fake tans now. Now, in my beginning of my early life as a late teenager, there were really lumpy, very dark fake tans, which didn't look very well. Thankfully, now things have moved on and we've better alternatives to fake tan with less ingredient in them as well. So they have improved. And if you haven't used fake tan in a while, go and talk to your buddy, your friend, see who, is really good at fake tan, ask them what they use. It's a safer alternative. We also have bronzing makeups that can be used as well to tan up. The other thing that we can do is embrace the skin that we're in. We have a problem with I have curly hair, I want to have straight hair, or I have straight hair, I want it to be curly. We tend to have a problem with what we have and what we've been given. Work with what you have and embrace your natural skin tone, because it's what we have. And there is, again, everyone's unique and beautiful exactly as they are. And again, maybe shifting our skincare over to having a wellness focus. We call it holistic care in nursing. And when we talk about holistic care in nursing, it's not alternative treatments. We're talking about looking after our entire body. It's really important to remember that your skin is an organ of your body, a really important organ. And when that organ isn't working properly, you're going to feel really unwell. Your skin weighs a couple of kg. It's your largest, most visible organ. So you can't see your heart, you can't see your lungs, but you can see your skin. It's an organ of communication and it needs to work well for you to feel healthy as well. So have your skincare as part of a healthy routine, including hydration, plenty of sleep, exercise, moving your body, building your confidence and doing things like mindfulness and talking to somebody if you're feeling a particular way, because I know we're going to talk about anorexia later on, but it's really important to embrace the skin you're in. And if you find that you have negative thoughts or low self-esteem, to go to your GP and have a conversation around that as well and see what we can do around that. Remember that HSC Life has some brilliant resources now all around healthy mental health as well. So please tap into those resources too. Next slide, please. And there's lots of opportunities for intervention. So if you're on this call and if you work with patients or you work with the public, please educate people. So there's amazing resources from the office. Dr. Breda and Maria have some fabulous resources that they can give. They can have little wallet cards for your pocket, posters for wherever you work, and just having that conversation. Don't be afraid to spread that message about SunSmart and not using sunbeds, particularly if you know somebody's using it in a positive way, and just make people aware of the facts so they can make an educated decision. That's really important. It's important to challenge those myths, all those things that we were speaking about here, that it creates a base tan for holidays. It doesn't. You will still burn. Using a sunbed does not treat skin conditions. That's not the best way to treat skin conditions. If you have psoriasis, acne, eczema, or any other skin condition, please go to your GP, have a conversation about it. Link in with the Irish Skin Foundation because they're an amazing charity who look after people with skin conditions, and they've got a free helpline. Talk to your GP nurse about that. Be referred to a hospital-based consultant dermatologist who can treat your skin in a healthy, in a safe way for you. And that's really important to do that. promote early detection with people. So again, whether you work with patients or you're with your community and with your circle, remember just to say, listen, trained eyes save lives. You don't actually have to have a master's in dermatology to do this. If you notice a lesion on someone's skin, if you notice in a loved one or somebody you're looking after, something's different, something's new. Sometimes we call it an ugly duckling. So something, a lesion on your skin that looks different to everything else, is bleeding, changing in shape, size or colour, please tell them to go to the GP, get it checked. A lot of the time it's absolutely fine, there's no problem. But sometimes there is a problem, and early detection can save lives. Encouraging skin checks as well, and advocate for prevention. So it's really important that we all use our voice. I was at a football match there a couple of weeks ago. I always have sun cream in my bag, and I was handing it up and down, over and back. And people will copy behaviors. So if you have a good behavior when it comes to sun smart or choosing not to use a sunbed, people will replicate that behavior too. And again, supporting young people and parents, because it can be really difficult for Gen X and Gen Alpha. It can be really difficult to be a teenager right now, and they're under a huge amount of pressure to look and appear a certain way. So it's really important that we encourage parents and promote safe and healthy choices, and encourage them to ask questions, having a conversation around it. So we were also speaking yesterday. I was that kind of nurse years ago with the waggy finger and do as I say, like I'm telling you what to do, you should do it. That's not the approach that we want to take now from a health coaching point of view. We want to educate, talk, have open conversations where people are not afraid to come in and tell us and ask us questions. And that's really important. And just to know that brief interventions like a tan isn't evidence of damaged skin. There is no safe way to use a sunbed, and protecting your skin now reduces future cancer risks. Small little sound bites. Next slide, please. So again, self-examine your skin, look for changes, photograph with your phone any lesions that you have that are new. Pick up your phone, ring your GP. Don't sit on something and wait. Use mirrors or a loved one or someone you trust to look at areas of your skin you can see, like your back. And seek medical review promptly. If you see something, say something. Don't sit in it, look at it, and think, has it changed or has it not? And I heard a really good analogy a long time ago about if you look at your wardrobe, if you put a new suit or new skirt in there, you'll notice that new thing. So something that's new on your skin that looks different to everything else in your skin, you need to go and get that checked. And remember the ABCDE of melanoma. So we worry about lesions that are new, remembering that lesions you're born with will rarely change. It's lesions to develop over the age of 35 that we're really concerned about. But anything you see on your skin that is unsymmetrical, that you can't fold over in two halves, has an irregular border where the edges are ragged, notched or blurred, is variating in colour. So not just black, brown, or 2 or 3 colours within that lesion. Its diameter. So if it's bigger than the top of a pencil, just be concerned about that. And if something is evolving, it's changing. It was there before, but it's looking different now. It's getting bigger. It's getting unsymmetrical. It's bleeding. Any changes, just please go and get that checked. Next slide, please. So the final take-home message is we can choose to protect our skin. We need to have a holistic, healthy body image, not just our skin, but our entire body. And being sun smart and not using sunbeds is one part of that. Early detection. If you see something, say something. Pick up the phone and ring your GP immediately, and have some. We are talking about, as Dr. Breda said, evidence-based prevention here. We know that sunbeds are not good for our skin, so we need to make a healthy decision not to use them. And we can significantly reduce future harm and improve long-term health outcomes. So next slide is just a few references if anyone wants them either. So, thank you.
Thank you, Celine, for that really informative presentation. So our next speaker is Alana Goggins. Excuse me. Alana is a Senior Environmental Health Officer with the HSE's National Environmental Health Service. She works in Dublin City Centre and is on the Sunbeds National Service Unit. And today Alana is going to give us an overview of the Public Health Sunbeds Act 2014 and how the legislation is enforced by the HSE's Environmental Health Service.
Hello everyone, my name is Alana Goggins. I'm an Environmental Health Officer with the National Environmental Health Service in the HSE, and I'm going to cover the legislative section today. So just an overview of what I'm covering is the legislation itself, the types of inspections that our service does, some of the things required in the legislation, so warning signs, health information, marketing practices and health claims, and then a little overview of enforcement activity, the public non-compliance list, and then complaints. So the legislation itself is the Public Health Sunbeds Act 2014. So it's been in place now for 12 years, so I had to calculate that quickly. It applies to sunbed businesses only, so just important to note that it doesn't apply to certain medical treatments such as dermatologists, and it's enforced by the National Environmental Health Service. When it was brought in, the objectives were to protect those under 18 years from the risk of skin damage and to regulate the use for those over 18s, and also to promote a greater public awareness across all age groups, which is evident by us even here today talking. The main provisions of the legislation. So firstly is the ban for under 18s. So the ban is for the use of sunbeds for those under 18s, but also to sell or hire a sunbed to those under 18s. So there's a few provisions there. Operators have to check for ID, so they have to check for a passport, driver's license, or age card. That's their only defense. Student age card or anything wouldn't count as a defense for court. Other provisions are that it prohibits certain marketing practices, prohibits health claims. There's an obligation that the operator has to notify each year. So annually, they have to notify and pay €120. If they don't, we send warning letters, and then we can issue fixed penalty notices of €300. So they would have to pay the 120 and 300 if they're late or if they fail to notify. Other obligations include issuing protective eyewear that meets a certain EN standard, having warning signage displayed, providing set health information, and keeping records. The legislation gives us powers of entry to go in and inspect, to check records. It also gives us enforcement powers. I mentioned fixed penalty notices there for notifying. They can be issued for a certain number of non-compliances, so they can also be issued for non-compliances with the warning signage, health information, marketing practices. But it doesn't apply to all non-compliances. So if there was a sale to under 18s, that would be a prosecutable offence, so go to court. So the types of inspections we do, the first one there is our routine inspections. These are unannounced. We go in, we do a full inspection, checking everything that relates to us in the legislation. We also do online inspections of social media and websites. We do have social media accounts, so we can log in and we can check, we can see stories, posts, etc. This is mainly to see that, that there's no offers and no claims being made online. We receive complaints and we do go and investigate these, and we can go out and do an inspection. It may be an online one, it may be an in-person one. A mystery shopper is where an EHO, so an environmental health officer, goes out and they're pretending or alluding to be a customer, so they will go in and purchase a sunbed session or try to purchase a sunbed session, and they will see if age is being checked, if there's warning signs displayed, is there any offers being made, was the correct health information provided. So it's an EHO who isn't familiar to the premises, so not someone who does the routine inspections. Another person on the team will go in and do it. And then finally there is test purchases. So that relates to underage sales. So we will send in children under the age of 18 to see if they are sold a sunbed session. So I'm just going to go through some of the things required by the legislation. So the first one here is warning signs. So this is a prescribed sign in the legislation. I have it there on the right-hand side so you can see what it is. It has to have that white background. If they want to play or display anything in addition, they can, but they need to display this prescribed sign. It needs to be displayed on the premises, so visible on entry to the premises, and also visible on entry to the restricted areas. The restricted areas is the area where the sunbed itself is, so it might be a separate room. And then for online, both website and social media, it also needs to be displayed in a visible location. So it could be a pinned post on Instagram, something like that. The one that is displayed on the physical premises has to have the name and address and the notification number. That's not required for the online one. So the sunbed businesses have to provide each customer with health information. And again, this is also prescribed in the legislation. So this is a snippet here of what is required, what it is. So it outlines the risks of using the sunbed. You can see there the second bullet point, if anyone uses a sunbed once, you're 20% more likely to develop melanoma. And then it goes down to short-term health risks as well, sunburned skin, skin dryness, etc. And also then when you should never use a sunbed. So, don't use it if your skin burns easily or you have fair or sensitive skin. And then the customers have to sign this. So the sunbed business needs to make sure that the customers are provided with this and that they sign it. And then the business has to keep these records for 2 years. So marketing practices, what's not allowed. So they're not allowed to offer a sunbed free of charge. So the sunbed session or the hire of a sunbed applies to both. They're not allowed to use certain offers, which I'll go through in a second. They're not allowed to have a condition that it's used for a minimum period of time greater than 1 minute. So that means that they can't be saying, minimum period 10 minutes, minimum period 30 minutes, because that would be encouraging the use of a sunbed. Then they're not allowed to have any event or activity that promotes the use of the sunbed, such as a customer promotional evening. They're not allowed to have bonus points, loyalty schemes, anything like that. So it's an offence not just to sell these offers, but also to advertise, promote them. And then we will check for these in person, but also online on websites and social media. Here's some examples of what's not allowed. Buy one, get 20% off, or buy one, get one free. Buy a lotion or buy something else and you get 20% off the sunbed session. It's important to note that that's not the other way around. They are allowed to reduce the price of the lotion. That doesn't come under our legislation, but they aren't allowed to reduce the price of the sunbed session. It applies to the hire the sunbeds that I mentioned, so the sunbed rentals as well. So you can't say, rent the sunbed for 2 weeks and get the 3rd week half price, or happy hours offers, anything like that. So the diagram below in orange is an example. It says, bring a friend, get 10 minutes free on a sunbed. Not allowed. And over on the right-hand side, it's a UK one, but also would not be allowed here. 2 things. First, it doesn't say the price per minute, so they have to show the price per minute, and that's so that you can see, when you work it out, like, is that being, or any of these offers are being discounted. And the second one here is if you divided, each of those prices by the minutes, you can see that you get a different price. So hence some of them are on offer. So health claims. So I showed the health information earlier, the prescribed sheet that has to be provided. Apart from that, they're not allowed to make any health claims, so nothing beneficial. So they can't say anything in relation to glowing tans, nothing in relation to vitamin D, skins, bones, seasonal affective disorder, any skin conditions. They can't say anything beneficial to promote the use of the sunbed. And as well as in person, again, we check social media and websites for this. So that's just important to highlight that. So I have included 3 examples. The one on the right is the first one. These are examples of action that the UK authority took in relation to claims being made by sunbed businesses. So while it isn't allowed in the UK, it also wouldn't be allowed here. So the first one there, it makes claims in relation to vitamin D, calcium and phosphorus. It's not allowed. The second one is the one in white on the right. It was a social media post that was checked, and I've highlighted there that it's promoting, using a sunbed to get a tan for 15 minutes. Not allowed. And over on the right in purple, it makes claims in relation to vitamin D and also skin conditions. Says eases the symptoms of eczema and psoriasis with regular use. Not allowed in the UK and not allowed in Ireland. So we would also take action if we were to see these. So this is just a snippet of enforcement activity. I've just included the years 23 to 25. So the first column there is FPNs, which is the fixed penalty notices that I mentioned. There are €300 that are issued for certain offences. So 2023, 17 were issued, 10 and 24, 4 and 25. Don't think that's necessarily a decreasing pattern because it has gone back up for 2026, but we're mid-year, so I haven't reported on that. And then the next one is the prosecution. So it's important to note I've just included data for the premises prosecuted, not the amount of prosecutions we've taken, because we can prosecute a premises more than once. So whether they just happen to be prosecuted more than once in a year, or maybe that it's multiple directors or multiple partners. So just for the ease of reporting today, I just did the premises prosecuted. So 2023, they were for test purchases. So that's where we sent out the child under 18 and a sale was made. Also then for not notifying us, and then for not paying a fixed penalty notice. So if you don't pay that €300, then we can proceed to court. And 2024, again, 2 test purchases, so 2 sales to under 18s. The next one there was multiple offences, not notifying marketing practices and health information. And then eyewear, so either didn't have the eyewear or wasn't the correct eyewear, so didn't have the correct EN standard. And 2025, they are all for sales to under 18s. So I don't have the 26 data, but just to let you know, we do publish the premises that we prosecute. It's called the non-compliance list. It can be found on the HSE website. So I have the URL there. You won't remember, but if you just Google HSE Sunbeds, it comes up, there's a page. And if you just scroll down there, see it's written in blue and underlined HSE Sunbed non-compliance list. Underneath, I just included a screenshot of what actually appears if you were to click on that. So it publishes the list. It's a lot longer than what I have there. I've just included the first two. So it's the same business, and the owner was prosecuted and the employee. So just to show you, yeah, the employee can be prosecuted too. And that one there was for underage use. So we say the legislation that was breached. So complaints, so for 23 to 25, the main complaints that we got were in relation to underage use and marketing practices. I mean, it's great to get the complaints. So if you have any concerns, please do make a complaint. We're not on social media 24/7. So if you happen to see something, if you could take a screenshot or a screen grab and send it through, that is great. And then we can then investigate it. And similarly, if you have concerns about anyone you know under 18 that might be using a sunbed, please let us know, and please let us know the premises you think this is happening from, and we will investigate this. So how to make a complaint? You can make it to our Sunbed National Office, sunbeds@hse.ie, and they will then forward it to the local team. Or alternatively, you can contact the local team yourself. So again, if you just Google HSE Environmental Health Office, what I have on the right will appear on the HSE website, and it gives a list. You click on local offices and it gives the contact details for every office. So, you can find Galway, Cork North, Donegal, Cavan, Dublin City, whatever. So wherever you want to make a complaint, you'll have the phone number, address, and the email address. So please do let us know. So that's the end of my presentation. I know it's just a quick overview of the legislation and to kind of get an idea of what we do in the service. Thank you very much for listening, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Alana. So our final speaker today is Dr. Fabiola Creed, who is a researcher at the University of Glasgow. She researches healthy commercial industries and technologies and marketing in modern Britain, and her free-to-read digital book explores the rise and fall in terms of reputation of the sunbed. She has also published on the fake tan industry and melanotan injections and on the gendered stigmatization of sunbed consumers. She's passionate about using research to inform policy and is part of NHS Scotland's Sunbed Safety Group, where she sheds light on the sunbed industry's marketing strategies. And today she's going to speak to us about the psychology of sunbed use and tanorexia, or tanning addiction.
Thank you. Just waiting for the slide. Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you. So yeah, thanks for the introduction, inviting me to speak, and it's been great listening to the other talks. It's amazing seeing how far the monitoring, the safety, and cracking down on what I'm going to say today, which is largely based on the UK. So today, by also addressing external factors, I want to show that the desire to develop a tan is not just psychological. Like other long established £1 million industries, the sunbed industry that we know today has actively cultivated this. It has created an environment, both in person and now virtually, that encourages sunbed tanning and has a history of distorted medical and scientific knowledge. That's in quotation marks. It's also always improving marketing strategies or trying to keep ahead, redesigning sunbed technologies and engaging with the latest social cultural trends. So together, these forces have produced the feel-good associations that make us want to tan every day. By outlining these factors, I aim to shift the responsibility away from people who want to tan and onto the industry that persuades people that they need one, and also away from beauty salon and gym owners that are also encouraged to provide one. In doing so, I hope to encourage people to think more reflectively about what we see, hear, or read about sunbed tanning. Most sunbed messages on social media are driven by profit rather than concern for our health, and knowing this may prompt us to pause and reflect on why they are so effective and why they shape our need or our family and friends to use sunbeds. Next slide, please. Thanks. So the last thing I want to do is create a top-down dynamic where I, as a researcher, am talking down to people who might want to use sunbeds. To avoid that, I want to share why I became interested in sunbeds. So I was a teenager in the 2000s when being tanned was super cool, but we were aware of the health risks. That's when the health measures were starting to pop up. So we used them secretly and we used them with shame. We were bullied if we wore fake tan because the quality was so bad. And with sunbeds, you could lie to people and say it was natural, like you just got it from sunbathing in your garden. So this was before the 2011 legislation banning under 18s from using them in England. So when I was 15, once a week, my friends and I would get the bus to Nottingham to use the cheapest, strongest sunbed. And the goal was simple. The redder we looked, almost to the point of burning, the more tanned we were expected to be the next day, ready for a night out holiday. So I then went to Liverpool University, known as Britain's sunbed capital, alongside places like Blackpool, Newcastle and Glasgow. And I lived with a group of Irish, Liverpool and Manchester girls, and I quickly adopted into quite an intense routine. If we were going out at the weekend, we would use sunbeds every night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, to achieve the darkest possible tan. When I finished my degree, I returned back to Nottingham, and because there just weren't as many sunbeds and they just weren't as cheap, I could not go on them as often, and I felt mentally and physically rubbish. But I was also worried about if sunbeds were really that harmful because of all the health selling adverts from the sunbed industry. So I decided to check out which cities in the UK had the highest number of outlets, and also looked at the highest rates of skin cancer, so incidences and also death rates. And I noticed a trend, and Liverpool was very worrying. So I suggested it as a PhD project, it got funded, here I am 10 years later. So now you know my background as a former keen sunbed user. I hope you feel more comfortable knowing that this is a judgment-free space and can seek help if you need help. So my personal story has already highlighted some factors that encouraged it: youth, local beauty cultures, and the desire to fit in and not be the only pale white person in the house. And now I'll map broader industry influences that cultivate this. One of the most significant is how the sunbed industry has embedded itself within fitness and health spaces. And is it okay to go on the next slide, please? Thank you. So the arrival of stronger, quicker sunbeds coincided with the first rise of everyday gyms across cities in the 1980s. As a result, sunbeds remain standard feature in gyms and over time, and also local councils. And this normalised our cultural association that a tanned body is a sign of fitness and health. So this link was reinforced by cultural expectations to be slim, toned or muscular. So dark skin visually looks more toned and slimmer, whereas white, lighter skin makes the body appear larger, just visually, which the sunbed industry plays on to make us feel rubbish if we have white skin and natural body weight. The industry has also strategically placed sunbeds, which are brightly coloured and easy to spot near busy transport hubs, train, bus stations, and busy beauty fitness spaces. Across every digital platform, the industry makes sure that a sunbed tan is visually connected to fitness, but also sex appeal. The logic is simple. For hundreds of years, sex sells, and linking a tan to sexual desirability is highly profitable. You just look at the porn industry and OnlyFans. Next slide, please. Next, I turn to the industry's misleading health, medical and scientific claims, both of which have to be treated with caution because the industry has a long history of selectively using and confusing science to weaken public health efforts and make more money. So sunbeds quickly spread through cities in the 1980s, and with all new technologies that become popular, like vapes, there hadn't been enough time to research their long-term health effects on our bodies. And so their early health claims, like that they prevented skin cancer, which was actually a claim in the 1980s, went unchallenged for over 10 years. Some of these claims persist today, and I'll provide two other examples. So first, sunbed sellers have sold sunbeds as a source of vitamin D to strengthen our immune systems, which will prevent illnesses such as COVID-19. And these messages more typically circulate through less public channels, such as private messaging on Snapchat or influencer content to young people, making them harder to regulate and challenge. So scientific evidence does show that in the short term, UV exposure can increase vitamin D levels. However, sunbed radiation also damages DNA, it accelerates skin aging and increases the risk of skin cancer. So as like most things we put in our bodies, a short-term benefit does not mean there's no long-term both. And the industry tries to pitch them against each other. Both processes can happen at the exact same time. There are also long-standing myths about UV radiation. So for decades, a common claim was that sunbeds primarily emitted UVA, and in the 80s and 90s, they changed all their sunbeds names to UVA sunbeds only. And the claim was that UVB was the one that caused cancer. So UVA sunbeds are safer, and of course they protect skin against damage when we're on holidays by creating a protective shield. I literally heard this debate between a group of girls in a beer garden last week. However, medical studies showed that both sunbeds emit both UVA and UVB, regardless of if it's one or the other, and is guaranteed to increase the risk of skin cancer. Yet by putting several really confusing narratives out there over the decades, the sunbed industry can create the illusion of being scientifically legitimate. Next slide, please. And finally, we have the factors that encourage our dependence on sunbeds to feel good. Salons have lured us in for decades with discounts, freebies, often requiring for us to create an account. From that point, they'd previously be able to track our location and general tanning behavior and our data. When we visit, where we visit, and how often. This allows them to send targeted emails, texts, app notifications with offers. If we stop going, previously the offers had got stronger, so bigger discounts, free sessions, free lotions and potions to get darker, more urgent incentives to bring us back. Once inside, pricing structures had pushed us further. We'd be encouraged to bulk buy minutes that will need to be used within a limited time frame. So to a rational person who's trying to make the most of this money, this will lead to more frequent visits, which in turn will create a psychological reliance and a ritualistic use of sunbed to be able to feel good. And the sunbed experience itself is carefully designed to heighten mood boost. Deliberately choosing purple, blue, pink lighting, upbeat music, and all the tropical smells create a controlled, feel-good environment, almost holiday-like. There's a short-term physiological reward. It's warm, it's relaxing. It's probably for the first time in the day. You've taken a break from everything. You can't go on your phone. So it's almost like meditation. And then there's followed by the vitamin D, which we positively associate with going on the sunbed. So over time, this can turn into a routine, even a reliance to feel good. You end up looking forward to it, especially when the weather is rubbish or you've had a really rubbish day. More recently, additional technologies have been added. Sunbed providers claim that benefits like collagen, and now I've seen the LED trend. And I think about 10 years ago, they introduced the vibration plates, which give the impression of toning and exercising, further fabricating the idea that sunbeds are part of a health and fitness routine. Next slide, please. To conclude, tanning culture has been deeply embedded through positive associations for well over half a century, even through toys of the 1980s and 1990s. And today there's video games and mobile gaming apps for toddlers to teenagers. So there was a glow up Kim Kardashian game. So it's actually a surprise if we have fairer white skin that we aren't more, or there aren't more of us that are supposedly tanorexic. And more recently, knowing there's an untapped market of brown and black people, the sunbed industry are now using the wonderful rise in black beauty politics and fashion since 2020 to encourage people with dark skin to further darker. So finally, I hope my talk will help people reflect on these deliberate strategies that, to make money, shame us for being fair-skinned or not dark enough. And I also hope that by reducing stigma, people feel more comfortable asking for help or having a chat with loved ones to see how they could cut down on sunbeds, just like if you're cutting down on drinking, smoking, takeaways, or sugary snacks. So yeah, thank you for listening, and I welcome all questions.
Thank you, Dr. Creed. That was really interesting. So now I invite all of our speakers to come back on for the panel discussion. Okay, so just have a look here. So the first question that I have is for Celine. So Celine, there's kind of two parts to the question. So the first bit is, do you have any suggestions for targeted awareness for training for people who seem to be unaware of the dangers of sunbed use and who use them in their homes. And the second piece is any specifically advice on targeted awareness training for the traveller community.
Sure. So, Dr. Creed, that was just wonderful. I was hanging on every word that you were saying there, and um, there's a synergy between both countries and what's happening. I think when I started talking about skin cancer prevention, first of all, I would have had the holier than thou attitude, knowing full well that when I was a student nurse, we were doing the exact same thing and we were seeking out the cheapest options, including home rentals. But I suppose with the coaching hat on, and we know now that trying to change people's opinion can be really, really difficult, especially when we're up against this whole machine that's working in the beauty industry, where this idea of tan skin is healthy skin, it's better for you. And we spoke yesterday as well about the whole notion of you would just want someone to say that it's okay, because then you could go and get your tan and you don't have to feel guilty about it. It's kind of like that analogy of a glass of red wine is really good for you, and you can think, oh, I can go and have my glass of red wine. So the tips I will give is just exactly what we did today. It's having that open dialogue, that conversation of no shame. Shame is very powerful. It's a very powerful tool. And if people feel judged, or if people feel like there should be a set answer that they should give you, they're not going to be able to open up and be truthful, and we can't really have that dialogue. It's similar to other behaviours such as, say, alcohol consumption, smoking. When we ask patients sometimes, do you smoke or drink? I'm a social drinker and I don't smoke, when in fact that they do, because they feel they're going to be shamed, and then we can't actually do anything about it. So there's a couple of things that we do in CNME here around healthy behaviours that we use. One is things like motivation interviewing techniques. So often you will see courses on motivation interviewing for healthcare professionals. I think that maybe something on HSE land around that, and it's extremely powerful. It's a great tool to use to actually explain information to people and actually get them realizing and acknowledging that they can take steps themselves to a healthier body, to include stopping using sunbeds and being sun smart. It's a really great technique to use, and it works really, really well. From the point of view of the traveling community, who again, I have huge respect for and I've worked with over the years. And I have to say, the experience that I've had at the traveling community all over the west of Ireland here is that they're very honest in what they say to you about their use. So whereas members of the settled community, for example, will deny sunbed use, they'll deny they got burnt, or, you know, however, members of the traveling community will be straight up and honest with you. So that's the first hurdle over and done with, if people are honest and open about what they're doing. And again, we know from the literature and some of the research, we again don't want to shame people. We don't want to frighten people either, but we have to be honest about the evidence and the scientific evidence that we have at our disposal, including that any use of sunbed really super increases your risk of developing skin cancer. However, sometimes, and we had it yesterday, we had a Woods lamp yesterday, for example, and we were offering it to people so they could look at the pigmented damage that's on their skin. And actually, we showed a picture of me, which was not at all a good picture of me and my damaged skin. So sometimes the science will tell us as well that actually getting people to change their minds, be sun smart and not use sunbeds, if you go the route of, say, the anti-aging message, that can often have a good effect on people. We used to always say on females, but now we know that males are being targeted on aesthetics and the way they look and being shamed about their body, to include, you know, what they look like with no clothes on, muscles, all that kind of thing that can be very damaging as well. So actually going that route as well can be super helpful. And again, I think they're just a great community to change. Back in 2010, we did a project here in Sligo where we looked at, I was working in dermatology, and we looked at sunbed use, which was a high rate of. And we had a very energetic discussion around it. And just what you said, Dr. Creed, about perceptions and myths. We were having the conversation around beauty parlors at the time because there was really no sunbed shops. And one of the participants said, but the beauty therapist wears a tunic top just like you do. So she's the same, you know, she's coming from a health point of view as well. And often that appearance can be misleading to some people. So after we had the conversation, I offered another session that we'd have a chat. I brought in a beautician locally who did some tans and did some spray tans on participants, and they really ran with it. And in fact, they created their own leaflet for their own community, explaining why sun tanning wasn't good for you and showing fake tans before and after. And it was hugely successful. and there was a huge dip in sunbed use that time. Unfortunately, the rate has come up again. So there's definitely a need for constant education. There's a need for relevant education on platforms like social media platforms as well. And again, it's kind of bringing people along with you with the message. It's not that, just bang some information to them, actually having those engaging conversations. And if anyone on the call wants to contact me after around anything I have, anything I can do, please let me know and I would be so glad to help.
Thanks, Celine. That's fantastic. So just you've emphasised there really the how important it is to have that non-judgmental approach and then
Yes.
understanding what motivates people and how to bring them along with you. So thanks a million. I have a question for you, Alana. If a parent or teacher is concerned about a young person under 18 using sunbeds, what can they do? Can they report their concerns somewhere?
Yeah, please do. So just email sunbeds@hse.ie. Like you could contact the local environmental health office, but probably just as easy to remember sunbeds@hse.ie and they'll pass it on. So just say the premises that you think it's happening from. We do test purchases every year. So maybe if we haven't done it yet, maybe we'll actually target that place. But if not, we will still arrange to investigate that anyway.
Okay, brilliant. So really easy to do, and something that you're really encouraging people to do if they're concerned.
Yeah, like it makes our work more focused as well. So please let us know.
Great, thank you. And now I have a question for Dr. Creed. Have you noticed social pressure to maintain a tanned appearance?
Absolutely. There's so much still with the bubbles of social media and also the seasonal changes as well. When the weather gets a bit warmer, people want to be out. And also, there's just constant bombardment with new tanning products. Because I look at this research, I'm always getting targeted, but they've shifted from there's obviously the fake tan of the 80s and 90s, but then you've got injections, now you've got nasal sprays, and now I'm seeing tablets, which apparently change your biome sort of molecule development. So yeah, sadly, there's just so much social pressure.
Thanks. And just important to point out, I know we've mentioned it already, but those nasal sprays and injections and tablets and things, they're, illegal, unregulated products and they're extremely dangerous. So just to emphasize that point as well. I have another question for you, Celine. So what is one key message that you wish everyone understood about sunbed use?
Um, Often, and we were saying this yesterday as well, often in healthcare around different diseases or different health promotion that we try to do, we can't be 100% sure that something is good or bad. When it comes to sunbeds, we know for sure that nobody of any age should ever use a sunbed for any reason. And I would specifically say with my dermatology hat on, please, 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 if you know somebody has a skin condition like psoriasis, acne, or eczema, please get them to go to their GP because there is help out there. I know the waiting list can be long, but there can be pockets and changes. So please go to your GP. You can get help in your primary care, and there are various supports around the country as well, particularly when it comes to pigmented lesions. So don't feel like I'm going to be on a waiting list for a long time. Talk to your GP. They can help you. They can refer you on, and there's safe, effective help out there for skin diseases that we didn't have 20 years ago. So if you've had psoriasis diagnosed 20 years ago, we didn't have medications that can help you. Now we do. So please don't use a sunbed for any reason because it's so damaging to your skin long term.
Thank you. Just another one for you, Alana. You've discussed this stuff in your presentation already, but I suppose it's no harm if people are asking again just to clarify it again. So someone has asked about what practices are prohibited on social media for sunbed premises, and do they have to display warning signs on social media?
Yeah, for the warning signs, it has to be displayed anywhere that the sunbeds advertised, promoted, or sold. So yeah, for social media, if that's what it's being used for. So just somewhere in a conspicuous location. So usually you'll see it as the first pinned post, but yeah, somewhere there. And then just what's prohibited on social
What
media.
marketing practices are prohibited? Yeah, on social media.
So any health claims are prohibited, and then for marketing practices, so the I suppose reduction in sunbeds, so like or discounted offers, and then free of charge offers as well.
Perfect, thank you. And if people see those and they're concerned, they can report them too as well. And
Yeah, and like if you see them online, you can just screenshot it, because it might be gone by the time we get on the next day or whatever.
yeah, perfect, thank you. Dr. Creed, I have one more for you. How can friends or family recognize when tanning habits have become problematic?
Yes, so if someone's self-esteem is based on using sunbeds, then it's essentially harming their sense of self alongside their health. So I personally think that from a researcher's standpoint, I think that fake tan is somewhat also supporting the sunbed industry. All tanning advertising works for all tanning products. But right now, speaking as a person who has a younger sister who's 7 years younger than me, and she knows the research I did. And a few years ago, she was like, I started to use sunbeds because my friends are using sunbeds. And she was about 18, 19 at the time. And speaking as a person who has a Spanish mum who loves to tan, there are really, really good fake tan out there. So if you see that and you have that, maybe buy some tanning products, like fake tan products. Have a nice weekend, experiment. Like, I think that's what you can do on a personal level with family and friends if you see that there's a habit. And yeah, just to try and help their health or try and get into a new sort of ritual or habit if they're relying on that.
Great, thank you. And so I just have a final question for Celine. How can parents educate young people about sun safety effectively?
And it's a really difficult one. And I'm Dr. Quaid, everything you're saying, I'm vibing with big time here. I have an 18 and 19-year-old, and I see how difficult it is for them, especially in social media spaces and the pressure that they feel. So absolutely that conversation around there is an alternative. So I think open dialogue in that non-judgmental fashion with your children as well. I've always said, please come home and tell me. We can have an open discussion. I'm not going to give out to you. I'm not going to punish you if you tell me openly what's happening. So actually, if you can open up that conversation saying, listen, we were at a webinar today. We heard about sunbed use. You know, do your friends use sunbed? Do you use a sunbed? You know, what are people talking about in your space? And just opening up that non-judgmental conversation to say, let's just have a conversation around it. And then just introducing some of the concepts. Again, and it's not to play into it, but younger people, our Gen X and our Gen Alphas, are seriously under pressure about aesthetics and how they appear in the world. So on playing on that, what we can do is say, you know, there is evidence to say that, you know, you can get skin damage from sunbeds long term. And sometimes when younger people are hearing this, think, I'll never be 30, I'll never be 40. Do you remember when you went to school and your school teacher was maybe 28 and you thought, oh my God, they're so old? And children and adolescents feel like that. They feel they're never going to get there. So even in a short term, you know, we can explain that, you know, overexposed UV light can cause hyperpigmentation in skin, hypopigmentation where they're getting lack of color within their skin. It can worsen some skin conditions. So UV exposure, again, is touted to treat some skin conditions, but in fact, it can worsen some skin conditions. And you can get something like, say, heat-induced urticaria from sunbeds. So almost inducing that concept. And then, as Dr. Creed said, you know, maybe exploring, okay, right, not a fan of fake tan, but let's ask the question about what people are using, what's good now, that might be useful to use instead of. And again, maybe just tracing that need to get a tan with them with other things, you know, and sometimes it can be linked to other behaviors, like maybe a problem around eating food, for example, or wanting to go and have unsafe procedures when they're older as well. So it's really important to open up those open dialogue conversations, to have a safe space for them to be able to come and have a conversation about it with you. That's what I would say is the most important thing.
Thanks, Celine. That's really useful advice. So look, that draws today's webinar to a close. So I really like to say thanks again to all of our speakers. Thank you all for attending today's webinar. We hope that you found it informative and have learned something new about the dangers of sunbeds. As I mentioned earlier, the recording along with useful resources will be circulated tomorrow to everyone who registered. And just a reminder that we will be circulating a short survey for you to complete when the webinar closes. And we'd really appreciate if you take a minute to complete it, as your feedback is very valuable to us. And finally, just to let you know that Celine has recorded an episode of the HSE's Talking Health and Wellbeing podcast on sunbeds, and that will be available in the next couple of weeks, so you can get it wherever you get your podcasts.